Hello, my name is Alexandra O'Neill, and I'm an associate at Saxe Sternberger and Vita. Today, I'm here with Tracy Allen Saxe for this month's Partner Spotlight. Tracy is one of the firm's co-founding members, its president, and a senior partner in our Northeast office. Tracy has been practicing for 37 years and has been exclusively representing policyholders for the last 25. So Tracy, let's jump right in. Why did you decide to exclusively practice insurance coverage law?
Well, actually, I didn't start out doing that. For quite a while, certainly while I was in law school, and when I first came out of law school, my first interest was really just trying any type of case. At the beginning, I tried cases that involved criminal cases. I tried a murder case when I was a few years out of school. I tried family cases, personal injury cases. I tried defamation case. I tried a paternity case. It was anything that was a trial-related work I was most interested in. And in fact, that guided my practice and the decision as to what firm I went to at the beginning as well. Ultimately, though, it just was coincidence and happenstance that I ended up doing insurance coverage law. It's interesting that I found this to be true of most of the people I work in insurance or risk management, is that they also have gotten there accidentally. But for me, I had a friend from law school, still a good friend of mine, and he was in private practice together in Connecticut at a different firm. But when he moved over to an in-house counsel position, I ended up talking to him about it. And he told me one day, he said, listen, we've got all these asbestos problems and insurance coverage related litigation for these asbestos problems. Would you be interested in, maybe taking on some of these insurance coverage cases on behalf of the company? And I still think it's funny that my reaction to him was, that sounds really boring. I don't think I want to do that. He said, no, it's not what you think. And sure enough, he was right. I had this idea that it was a stodgy area that was just going to be sitting there reading contracts with the same issues over and over and over again. And I thought, I don't really want to do that. I like doing different things and more challenging stuff. But it turned out I was wrong. That's how I got into insurance coverage. I ended up starting out working on asbestos insurance coverage cases, and the practice my own practice has expanded from there.
And what do you like most about representing policyholders?
Well, there's a couple things. First of all, I love the intellectual challenge of insurance coverage work to begin with. I think it is probably the most interesting thing I've touched, and I've done a lot of different things in my earlier years. But I also like the idea as the policyholder, two things. One, I feel good about the idea of representing the policyholder rather than the insurer. I know a lot of my friends on the insurer side of the equation may feel differently, but I feel like we're on the side of the angels. I feel like we're, upholding the contract, and that the policyholders paid the premium and they're entitled to the coverage. And we only usually get calls on litigation for these things when the insurance company has denied the coverage. So I feel like we're on the good side of that equation. I also like the idea that generally we're the party who is seeking the coverage. We're the ones who are actively managing the claim. We're the ones who are the plaintiffs when the litigation comes. I find that in my experience as both plaintiff and defendant in a variety of suits, I've tried over 60 cases in my career, I always like being on the plaintiff side better. I like the idea that the plaintiffs are more likely to take charge of setting what the battlefield is going to be and what the issues that you're going to fight about are. And you're going to take more responsibility for bringing it to its end. Until that happens, typically the money's in the other side's pocket, and it's up to you to keep pushing the case, and you end up being more proactive. Whereas there's a habit on the defense side when you're handling the other side, not just in insurance coverage, but in all cases, that you're going to end up being more reactive. I like being on the proactive side of the case.
Now, can you describe for me a challenge you faced in practice and how it influenced your goals?
The challenge I faced in practice and influenced my goals. I think along the way, I've always, and I believe that all lawyers should do this, and I certainly advise the folks in our office, that you need to really manage your own career and keep an eye open as to whether you're getting what you want out of your own career. And so in that regard, at various times, I found that I had gotten what I could out of a particular practice or experience, and found it was time to move forward. Although early on, I started in a practice that the folks there are wonderful, great trial lawyers, and I learned a lot from them. I ended up having to move at that point because the commute was quite a bit after my first child was going to be born, and my wife wanted to be near her parents. I didn't really like an hour through traffic from the New Haven area down to Stamford. But as it went along, I realized, okay, that was a much more personal, individual, smaller business practice. It was interesting to move forward and handle more complex cases with larger dollar amounts. One of the early challenges was, although I was trying a lot of cases, I found sometimes I felt like I was trying it with one hand tied behind my back because there either wasn't enough money at stake in the case, or the client themselves couldn't afford to pay the expenses of having more work done in the case, of bringing in the type of expert you might want, the demonstrative evidence, or have you spend the hours that you wanted to spend. And so that I tried to overcome that challenge by taking on more commercial type of cases and more corporate clients with bigger dollar amounts involved. So I did that, and then ultimately I thought, I'd like eventually to be able to help run and manage a firm. And so I had the opportunity at some point when I was handling an insurance coverage case alongside a very large firm. They were co-counsel in a case with me. And they were, at the time, they were considered the premier insurance coverage firm. And they invited me to open up their Connecticut office. They had no Connecticut office at the time, and they asked me to open up that office with them. And I thought that was a great challenge for me, and some way to learn how to do that. And so I did that. And after a few years, I felt like the negatives were beginning to outweigh the positives of working with a big firm, even though I had my own office. And ultimately, that led to our current incarnation as Saxe, Dornberg & Vita.
And what are you passionate about, Tracy, whether in law or in life?
Well, I'm always passionate about my own family and making sure that they're happy. And raising my children with my wife has been my greatest pleasure. In my professional life, I am very passionate about results for clients, keeping clients happy, always recognizing that what we do as lawyers, we are a service industry, and you could be the smartest lawyer in the world and know all the answers, but if you don't get results for the client, it doesn't mean anything. It's all about the results for the client. My passion in that regard has, as the cases have grown bigger and have become more complex, and we have larger teams of lawyers working on it, and we've grown this firm from 3 lawyers to 40 lawyers or more at this point. My passion has come to about teaching and mentoring and training younger lawyers to inspire them to have the same enthusiasm and passion I have for getting results for clients.
Now, you've touched on this a little bit, but what motivates you in practice?
Well, there is that main thing I think I did touch on, which is that seeing results for clients, seeing happy clients. Early on, I think it was a great training for me to be at a smaller firm, have a very personal practice. I remember early on, I did a lot of family cases, and there was probably, even though I had done criminal cases where people faced jail time, the truth was, folks in a family setting, especially if their visitation or custody of their children is on the line, there is nothing more important to them, and everything you do is critical. And whether you've succeeded or not, and whether you've made the client happy. You can't change the facts, you can't change the law, but if you're improving the odds that your client gets a better outcome and they're happy with the results, that gives me great satisfaction, and that is my biggest motivator. That continues to be the case. You would think that wouldn't be the case as you start to work for large corporations, what we do, but everybody there who are professionals inside the corporation, whether they be in-house counsel or risk managers, they also have a lot at stake in the results, and they're counting on you, and making them look good by getting good results gives me great satisfaction.
And how do you keep your team motivated when they may encounter an obstacle or conflict along the way?
Well, I think part of it is that I would say that I try to look back on what motivated me and what kept me going. I think that we have tried to create a firm that sort of matches my own feeling about what is a good area of practice and a good practice setup. In that regard, we do not handle routine cases. We're not doing the same thing over and over again. I couldn't do that. If I had just always doing the same thing, case after case, it would be easier to process those cases. But I think I would become bored and it would become less exciting. I think we take on more challenging, intellectually stimulating cases. And I think that connection to clients is very important, so that the folks who are lawyers in our teams on each of these cases, they are very early on, almost from minute one, introduced to the clients. The client is aware of their contribution to the ultimate result, and the lawyer knows that, and therefore they don't feel like they're simply putting out widgets that they don't see what the result is. They're more craftsmen who build the entire product for the client and get to see the smile or dissatisfaction on the client's face if they're disappointed. And I think that it's always what motivated me. And I think that we've had enormously successful lawyers in this office. And I think that the ones who have done so well are also motivated the same way.
You've been practicing for 37 years and specifically in the insurance industry for the last 25. So can you tell me a little bit about the changes that you've seen in the industry during your practice?
I was thinking about it. It's actually 38 this spring, but I would say the biggest changes I've seen is sort of really that the fact that different areas of the law keep becoming important to insurance coverage. When I first started out, as I mentioned, it was a lot of my focus, at least, and I think a lot of the focus of the practice of insurance coverage was about product liability, and asbestos was one big example of that. After that, a giant focus was on environmental insurance coverage cases. During the 1990s, there was this explosion of litigation involving patent infringement, copyright, and trademark. For insurance coverage for those type of claims, and we did a lot of that starting around the late, all through that time. There were EPLI claims, employment practices, and directors and officers claims, but a lot of that has grown. We've also seen just a tremendous uptick since sometime in the 90s of construction insurance coverage issues and problems. And that continues to be one of the biggest parts of our practice. That really has never died down. But it's interesting, some of the things that pop up are that with new technology and new liabilities and new claims that come in against our corporate clients, we end up jumping into new areas of practice and new products that arrive. Cyber insurance coverage is a great example. Up until, let's say, 15 years ago, there wasn't much issue about any of these problems that people have with losing money because of cyber issues, whether they be ransomware or phishing or other things or any type of theft involving computers. In fact, most of that seems, again, I'm not good on timeframes, but it seems like the last 5 to 8 years has been the biggest area of growth for that area that was almost non-existent before. What's tomorrow's emerging issue? We don't know, and that's what's been interesting. It's always constantly changing. Sometimes since the late 70s till now, because there's been so much new things and new liabilities, new claims, and new issues in the law, all of them reverberate in insurance coverage along the way, because insurance touches pretty much every other area of law that there is. And so that we're constantly having to evolve and pick up and understand enough about our brethren's area of practice in order to find insurance coverage to pay the defense bills for that area and to get settlement money and verdict and judgment money.
Now tell me one item that's on your bucket list.
All right, so I knew you were going to ask me this question, so I had to think about it a little bit. But I would say that really two things come to mind, and they're on my bucket list and not being done by me because we keep pretty busy here. But I hope that at some point I will spend more time reading almost all the classic literature that I would like to have read from the Western canon of all sorts. And also, I have a big passion for music. And so that I just love listening to music. I don't play it myself, which is a shame as far as I'm concerned. But I would, maybe on my bucket list would be maybe one day I'm a DJ at a college radio station. I get to pick the music that gets played.
Great. Thanks so much for your time today, Tracy.
Thank you, Alex. I really appreciate it.